All right, so everyone should have joined us by now. Thank you so much and welcome again to our Tiger Family Talks. Tonight's topic is all about providing resources and information to support your Tiger's academic success. We know they are here to succeed in the classroom and we want them to ultimately get to that goal of graduation. And so there are so many resources here at LSU and such a community of people who want to see them succeed. And we just need them to utilize all that great information and resources. So we're joined tonight by the Center for Academic Success, as well as some current students and parents to share their perspective and help give you great tips and perspective to support your Tiger's success. Before we jump in, I want to introduce myself. I am Lindsay McCrory. I serve as the manager of Parent and Family Programs, and my office is dedicated to supporting you, our Tiger families. We want to give you information, communication, resources throughout the year to see your Tigers succeed here at LSU. So if this is your first Tiger Family Talks, thank you for joining us. If you've been joining us throughout the semester so far, or maybe last year, welcome back. You're in for some additional great content to help you. Once again, want to welcome everyone from Facebook Live as well. Thank y'all for joining us. So there are a couple of features that I want to point out. The first one, if you're joining us via Zoom, we have the chat feature and the Q&A. So the chat is a great place to introduce yourself, say hello. If you like something that a presenter or a panelist is saying, you can give them a thumbs up or maybe a congrats or great job. Or if you want more information from them, you can put that in there. But if you have a question, we ask that you put that in the Q&A portion of Zoom. So if you have a question for any of our panelists, we will open it up for Q&A at the end of our panel and presentation. So please let us know any of your questions that are related to tonight's topic via the Q&A. If you're joining us on Facebook, you can just put your questions in the comment section and put it as a comment. We are over there and have a team of people that can also help answer those questions or anything, any feedback that you have via Facebook, that comment section. So first thing we want to do is we have a little poll. So we're going to be using some polling questions throughout tonight's session just to help gauge where you're at and get some feedback from our audience that's tuning in. So if you are joining us via Zoom right now, you're going to see a poll pop up in just a moment that you can answer. You may see it now. It says you're viewing the question. So our question is, what classification is your Tiger? Freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior? We want to know who's joining us. And if you're on Facebook, you see on the screen right now those questions. You don't have access to the polling feature, but just go ahead and comment to let us know if your Tiger is a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, or maybe they're even a graduate student who's looking for some additional academic support. Let us know. All right, so it looks like we're 96% freshmen right now. I think we were expecting that one. Everybody see that? Awesome. Okay, I think we can end the poll, Carly. It looks like we're mostly freshmen on Facebook too. All right, thank y'all so much for tuning into that panel. That poll. We'll have some more questions in just a moment. So tonight's session is, as we mentioned, all about supporting your Tiger's academic success. And we are so thrilled to be joined by Melissa Bricado. She is the Assistant Vice Provost and the Executive Director for the Center for Academic Success. And she has lots of great information to share with you tonight. So Melissa, you can take it away.
Hi, everybody. I am a little hoarse. I am suffering from seasonal allergies. The ragweed is blooming right now. And so I am definitely, it doesn't hurt. It may sound like it, but I am so excited to be here to connect with the parents and families of our students, our wonderful students, and really excited to share with you some of the insights we have about, the student transition from high school to college learning, and just the fabulous resources that we have available here for them at LSU. And so I'm going to start my presentation. And so my presentation really is about supporting your students' transition to a college learning environment by fostering academic resilience. And we know that this transition has been, very unusual for students, for both sophomores and freshmen, just with the COVID experience. Many of them, experienced some online learning or maybe, different learning environments their senior year, or even last year when they were on campus. And so, we definitely saw a lot of students, having some challenges, especially with things like time management, and just kind of how to navigate those types of things. And so that is something that our office really tried to pivot our services and our responses to the students to meet them where they were. And so just a little bit about our center. The Center for Academic Success has been around for about 30 years. We are actually a two-time National Center of Excellence, recognized as a National Center of Excellence. And we're only one of 2 learning centers in the nation to have garnered that distinction. And we garnered that distinction by the work that we do with students and recognition for the amazing success that we have with helping students. And so in any transition, there are challenges, and you may have started seeing some of these challenges that your students are facing. And so we're going to do a poll right now just to ask you, what are some of the academic challenges your students will face this semester or has already faced? And you can choose as many of those as are applicable. And so you see the poll that has been posted. Okay, so the results are not unusual. 65% said balancing time, and that is, especially last year, was the number one issue that our students face, was really just how to juggle, how to balance all of the different types of learning and their class and study time and all the other responsibilities that they have. And so we are going to be talking about a lot of these things in this presentation today. And so one of the buzzwords that's going around today is something called resilience. And resilience is the ability to adapt despite challenges. And so resilience is definitely something that we want to help our students develop, because they are going through challenging times. And when you go through a transition, you definitely are experiencing challenges. And we want to encourage our students that just because you are experiencing a challenge, or maybe, you've experienced your first, test grade that isn't one that you had wanted, or maybe your first C or D or your first F, that failure is not a failure that needs to inhibit you from actually being successful. We want our students to understand that they are going to learn from these challenges and learn from these things. And so that's really what our focus is at the Center for Academic Success. And really, resilience and developing resilience is about developing what you think. It's really your attitudes. And it's about what you do. It's the effort that you put in. And our center is very focused on really helping students develop these positive attitudes and behaviors that are necessary for being resilient. And so those are the things that our center focuses on with students, along with providing them the support resources as well. And so when we go to a new environment, any new environment, there are always going to be some maybe new or different expectations. And so, when students come from the high school environment to the college environment, they were very successful high school students. Otherwise, they would not be here at LSU. Many of them experience some challenges because they are still using a lot of the same strategies that made them successful in high school, but don't understand that there are new strategies that are going to be required in a new environment. And so I want you to do an exercise with me. So this is a set of numbers, and I am going to give each of you 15 seconds. And what I want you to do is to get as many of the numbers in numerical order as you can in 15 seconds. So I want you to start with the 1, then find the 2, then the 3, then the 4, and so on. So ready, set, go. Okay, and stop. And you can put in the chat how many numbers you were able to get. I mean, and not all of you don't have to do it, but put in the chat how many numbers you were able to get. Okay. All right. Good deal. Okay, great. Awesome. Okay, so now I am going to do something. I'm going to create a grid or quadrants, between the numbers. And now what I want you to notice is how the numbers are arranged. So the number 1 is in the upper right-hand corner, and going clockwise, the number 2 is in the second quadrant, and then the 3 is in the third quadrant, and the 4 is in the fourth quadrant, and so on. And so now I'm going to give you 15 seconds, and I want you to find as many numbers as you can in those 15 seconds, knowing the pattern now. Ready? Go. And stop. And so now I want you to post how many numbers you got. And I want people to tell me if they more than doubled their score, or doubled or more than doubled their score. Okay, great. And so what was the difference between the 2 attempts? Between the first attempt and the second attempt, what was the difference between those 2 attempts? You knew what to expect. You knew the pattern. You knew what to expect. Expectations, absolutely. And so when we know what to expect, when we understand what's required, when we know the pattern, we are able to perform at much higher levels. And so, one of the things that our center does very well and that we're recognized for is providing students with simple strategies that make a huge difference in their academic performance. And so we like to show a few examples. These are just 3 out of thousands of students that we've helped to demonstrate just how effective some of these strategies can be. And so Jasmine is a student I worked with when she was a freshman, and she was struggling in her history class. She made a 44 on her first test. And then she came in, we met and did an academic coaching appointment. And one of the things I focused on with Jasmine was concept mapping. And she was able to bring her scores up to an 87 and an 86. So doubling, basically doubling her scores. Travis was a junior psychology student. He was having trouble with his readings because there's lots of textbook reading. And so we taught him an active reading strategy, and he made a 47 and a 52 on his first test. And after coming in and talking to us about active reading, he was able to bring up those scores. And then Dana was a first year's physics student, and she was having trouble with her homework. She was using a online service, Cramster, or one of those services that really kind of help the students solve the problems for them. And she made an 80 on her first test, and then a 54 on, which isn't bad, but then a 54 on her second test. And she was a physics major. And she said, well, if I'm going to make scores like 54s, I don't think I should be a physics major. Well, we taught her some strategies for approaching her homework. She was able to bring her scores up to an A and made an A on the final. And she did remain a physics major and graduated as a physics major from LSU. And so these are just some of the things that we can do when we help students with getting them the right strategies. And so what we know about learning today is a lot different from them when we were in school, when most of us were in school. A lot of us attended lots of lectures, lots of reading, lots of notes, but we know a lot more about learning today because there have been so many advances in cognitive science, in neuroscience since then. And so our office really works with that research on cognitive science and neuroscience. And we put it into practice with students. And so over the years, what we have found are these 5 truths of learning. And when we teach students these 5 truths, they can be, the most effective learners. And so the 5 pillars are: learners are unique, learning is a process, learning can be enhanced, emotions affect learning, and learning requires effort. And I'm going to go through each one of these things that we talk to our students about. And so learners are unique. Each one of us comes to the table with different attributes. We have different personalities. We have different, preferences, sensory preferences. We have, different skill sets that we're coming to the table with. And what we want students to understand is for them to just understand what their strengths are in learning and what their challenges are, so that we can help them improve some of those challenges. And so one other uniqueness is by generational differences. And so what we know about learners today is that they are much more adept at memorizing and less adept at critical thinking when they reach us here. They tend to prefer to learn visually and to learn kinesthetically, which means to learn by doing rather than learning by reading and writing. They, in the classroom, they're very used to, a lot of their high schools, they do a lot of active learning in class where they collaborate with classmates. And so they're very used to that. And they're a lot less adept at taking copious notes and listening to long lectures. We also find that they are a lot more confident, and in some cases overconfident about their abilities. And so sometimes this leads to an inability to cope with failure. So they're always used to doing well. So when they do fail, they really have a hard time coping with that, especially in the grade area, because a lot of them, their identity is tied to their academics. And so emotions affect learning. And we see a lot of this here at LSU. We have these students who were very successful in high school, and they come to LSU, and some of them, don't do very well on their first round of tests. So most of your students should have had their first round of tests in most of their classes by now. And some of them may have not done as well as they had hoped. And so what we want to beware of is something called phantom failure phenomenon, where a bright student will take on the persona or the idea that they are somehow a failure because they failed their first round of tests. And we want students to understand that just because you failed your first round of tests does not mean that you are a failure. And so one of the things that we work with students on really is their academic confidence. And so it used to be that the brain, people thought that the brain was fixed, that you were born, you had a certain amount of talent. You were born with that, and that was your lot. And so if you were born to be, you were good at math, and so you were always good at math, or you were born and you weren't good at math. And so you never were going to be good at math. And so, but what we have learned through neuroscience and cognitive science research is that the brain can change, and that's called the theory of neuroplasticity. We know that the brain can change by what we do and by our efforts. And so that changes the game. And so what we help students with to help them with their academic confidence is going from a fixed mindset of thinking, oh, well, if I'm bad at math, I'm always going to be bad at math because, I only have a certain amount of intelligence, to a growth mindset of, you may have done poorly on that first round of tests, but if we change our strategies and we put in, the right amount of effort, we can turn those grades around, because it has nothing, you not doing well on those tests has nothing to do with your intelligence. It only has to do with the strategies that you are using. And so, like we said before, just knowing the right strategies can make the biggest difference. And so we want to make sure that students are getting these strategies so that they can be successful. And we want to develop this growth mindset of, ensuring that they understand that they are capable of doing these great things if they have the right strategies and put in the right amount of effort. And then we talk to students, or we teach students about the learning process, because many of them aren't really aware of that process. And so once they have an understanding of how learning works, it's like having a user's manual for their brain. They are able to be so much more effective and efficient at their learning when they understand these things. Okay, and so we talk to students about the levels of learning. And so this is Bloom's taxonomy, and it really just demonstrates the different levels of learning, starting at the bottom with remembering and understanding, and then going all the way up to the levels of creating. Now, when we ask students when we are meeting with students where they think they performed at the most in high school, what do you think they tell us? Which levels do you think they say they performed at in high school? And you can answer in the chat. Okay, so good. We're getting up kind of a range of answers. And so most of the time when we ask students where they primarily learned at in high school, most of them say remembering and understanding, maybe a little bit of applying. And so, we talk to students that, understanding and remembering really is memorization. It's answering the questions, who, what, when, and where, the facts. So students are very, a lot of them are used to getting the study guide before the test. and answering the study guide, and then a lot of times the test is based off of the study guide. And that's not in all cases, but that is in some. And so what we talk to students about is that, if you were primarily performing at memorization, you were using techniques that really work well for memorization. And many students, reread their notes, they highlight, and they make flashcards. And those are fantastic strategies for memorizing. But when we get to LSU, our professors expect that we understand and remember information, but they also want us to do something with that information. They want us to apply, analyze, and evaluate that information. And that requires asking different questions: the whys, the hows, the what ifs, if this, then what. And so I always like to give a basic example of a doctor. I don't want a doctor that just knows all the parts of the body. I want a doctor that knows, if I do this in this system over here, then what's going to happen in this system over here. So I want students to know, to find patterns. I was distracted by the stuff going on in the chat. Sorry. We want students to be able to look and find patterns, to see how things are connected, and to really be critical thinkers. And so that's what we're trying to achieve. And to achieve these higher levels, we have to use different strategies than the ones that we use to just understand and remember. And so we also talk to the students about how their brain works. And because in college, the game changes with regards to testing. So in high school, many times they have tests pretty frequently over, 1 or 2 chapters. But when they get to LSU, a lot of them may only have 3 tests in a class, and those tests are over a ton of material, and the pace of the classes is much faster. And so we really teach them about how their brain works and what we need to do to kind of help our brain match that new pace. And so we talk to them about their, they take in information through their sensory memory, through sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. And it's only there for a very short amount of time, unless we focus on it. If we focus on it, then it can be put into our short-term and working memory where we can start to work on it. The problem with our short-term and working memory is that it is very limited and very small. And that's what is called cognitive load. So the amount of things that we're able to hold in that short-term and working memory is our cognitive load. And what happens to the short-term working memory is that it can reach cognitive overload pretty quickly. And so, how many of you have walked into another room and forgot why you were going into that other room for the keys or for whatever? You forgot, why did I walk in this room? That is when our short-term and working memory has cognitive overload. Things, I make a joke, things just start falling out when we have too much in there. And so it's not really ideal. And, students are used to, in these tests that they have in high school, is cramming everything into that short-term and working memory a day, before the test, and then regurgitating it out onto the test. And then the memory goes away. And so we call that renting the information when they do that. So what we really want students to do is to learn the information, and so that information can be moved into long-term memory, which is virtually unlimited. So it becomes a part of their knowledge, so that they can recall it at a later date when that test is, 4 weeks away. They put that into their long-term memory and are able to recall it. And we call that owning the information. That's an example that we use with them. It's renting information versus owning the information. And when we put it into long-term memory, we own that information. And so some enemies of focus, and I know that this is an issue for a lot of students, is the multitasking, the distractions of the social media, the dings, the roommate in the background. I mean, all of these things are enemies of focus, and we need to be able to focus in order to start that first step of getting information into that short-term and working memory. Anxiety and stress can have a big impact on our focus, and fatigue. And a lot of times college students will start kind of bad habits of, taking long naps and then not being able to sleep at night, and, maybe not eating well. And so they can experience a lot of these things. And so we really work with students on how to limit these things and how to change our behaviors so that we can get rid of some of these enemies of their, that are taking away their focus. And so another new concept for a lot of students is space practice. And so many students, I'm laughing at some of the stuff going on in the chat, they're saying they're distracted right now. I know. So many students are used to cramming or learning the information a day or two before the test. And so when they get to LSU, they say, okay, well, college is harder. So I used to study a day or two before the test. Now I'm going to study 3 days before the test or 4 days before the test. And that should be okay. That should do, I should do really well on the test. But what we, especially since these tests are so far apart, what we need to encourage students to do is what we call space practice. And that is spacing out our studying over a period of time. And so we see the forgetting curve way at the bottom, and then we see a first study of our information. That's the first repetition. And we see how close just studying that information one time is to the forgetting curve. But then we see on week 2, that second repetition of the information, and then our ability to forget is lessened. And then the third week, it's lessened more. And then if we repeat it a fourth time, it's lessened even more. And so we really want students to study a little bit over a long amount of time. And so our center, like I said, takes these cognitive science principles and we put them into easy to use practices for students. And we have developed the study cycle. And this is really a practice that we encourage all students to use in their studies here at LSU.
Want to become a more efficient learner? Put the study cycle to work for you. This 5-step proven approach helps students create a process for learning that can be easily applied to their coursework. The 5
Hey, Melissa, we can't hear your video right now.
and get more out of class time.
Oh, got it.
Step 3, review. As soon as possible after class,
I'm sorry about that.
what you experience in class makes more sense. Step 2, attend. Go to class. It seems obvious, but attending class is an essential step. Being engaged by taking notes and asking questions will help you feel more connected and get more out of class time. Step 3, review. As soon as possible after class, take 8 to 10 minutes to review your notes, fill in the gaps, note any questions you still have, and highlight important points. These first 3 steps, preview, attend, review, will help you get the most out of class.
Reviewing after class helps me reinforce new concepts, which really makes me feel more confident.
Step 4, study. Dedicate study time between each class. Use this time to engage with and process the material through active learning strategies like summarizing, concept mapping, practicing problems, or group study. Ask critical thinking questions like why, how, and what if. Remember to study in small increments using focused study sessions. Step 5, check. Check your learning by teaching the material, quizzing yourself, or working problems without using notes. Periodic checking will help you refocus and adjust your learning or methods if needed.
Checking my learning by testing myself has made a huge difference. Now I can see what material I need to work on and focus on that before the test.
The study cycle is designed to work the way your brain learns best. This method helps you move information from short-term to long-term memory and reach higher levels of learning. Start using the study cycle today, and you'll be a more confident learner in no time. Want to become?
Okay, and sorry about the sound. I think Carly put the link in there for you to review, and that video is on our website. And so just to kind of recap, so when students are in high school, primarily the teacher will do the preview, attend review steps in class. So they will provide the students with information kind of to introduce the unit. Students have to go to class, and then the teacher will usually provide some type of reinforcement type of homework. But most of the time in college, the students really are responsible for doing these 3 steps. And so this is a new concept for students in a lot of ways. And so the preview is really, really important for students to get that big picture before they go to class, because it really helps them with that processing, that cognitive processing. It helps them process information a lot faster. And so this is a step that a lot of students don't think about doing. And it's really an eye opener for students. And then this other part, the study part, is different for students, because students a lot of times are, my niece is in PA school, and she said, Aunt Melissa, I just study and study and study until I can't study anymore. But that's really not the way our brain likes to learn. It likes to learn in short, intense spurts. And so we have designed these focused study sessions so that students get the most out of their study time, because it's the way that our brain prefers to learn. And so we teach them how to, use these focused study sessions and using active learning in these sessions so that they can start moving that information from short-term to long-term memory. So, you see preview, attend, review, study. This is that repetition they need to start moving that information into that long-term memory. And then a new step for a lot of students is this check step. And so a lot of times students, test themselves when they get to the test. We don't want students to wait until the test to get this information. We want them to test themselves before the test so that they can know what they know and what they don't know, so that they can focus on what they don't know, so they can have 100% mastery before they get to the test. And so one of the things that we ask them to do is, to pretend to teach the material. Because when you teach something, you really have to arrange the information in a way that someone else can explain it. And it really highlights the things that you know from what you don't know. So that's one of the methods that we teach them. And then learning can be enhanced. Like we said, a lot of students come in using the same strategies they use in high school, rereading their notes, highlighting, making flashcards, but there are so many other methods that work a lot better. And so one of the things we really encourage students to do is to get active with their learning. Now, in high school, a lot of time that active learning was done inside class. So this is a new concept for a lot of students, having to get active with their learning outside of class. And so We encourage them to go to discussion groups or supplemental instruction, which I'll tell you about later. Practice by doing, by working problems, by doing hypothetical scenarios, by doing solving problems, and then teaching others or using the material immediately. Those are things that we encourage students to do as these active learning methods. And so just encourage, I mean, if you hear, what your student is doing, encourage them to use critical thinking, doing hypothetical scenarios, solving problems, concept maps, study groups, self-testing, teaching somebody else, going to tutoring or going to review sessions that are attached with their class. These are all great active learning strategies for students. And so one of the concepts I like to teach students is concept mapping. And it is a great way to visualize information because a lot of students prefer to learn visually. And this is a great active learning strategy that is new to a lot of students because a lot of students say the last time they saw concept maps were in elementary school. And so I reintroduced this concept to them, and a lot of students really love using these. And there's a lot of research across all kinds of fields that demonstrate the effectiveness of using concept mapping. And then another thing we really work on with students is how to get active with their reading, not to passively read over information where they're not getting anything out of their reading. So we definitely work with students on how to get active with a lot of their different study strategies. And then this is the number one thing that a lot of students struggle with. This is the time management. We need to plan our time, and we need to use the right amount of effort to be successful. And so one of the tools that we give to students, and we do this every semester, is we print out and we put online a semester calendar on our website. And so what we ask students to do is on their semester calendar, this is a view of the entire semester on one page. We ask them to go through their syllabi and to pull out the very major things that they have to do, all their exams, their projects, their papers. But we also ask them to put other things that are going to take up a lot of time on there. So, one weekend I have a family reunion. I have that Auburn football game coming up this weekend. That's a big game. I have this family wedding. And so what the semester calendar allows students to do is to see their busy weeks and then their lighter weeks, and to use those lighter weeks to prepare for those heavier weeks. And so, my friend, Dr. Warren Wagons back in engineering, he said that he had a 4.0 student who came to our academic coaching, and she said it made a huge difference. And he said, what was the difference it made? And she said, well, now I have a life, because before all I was doing was studying, but now I know how to manage my time so that I can have fun and I can get my studying done. And so that's what we really are aiming for. We're aiming for that balance so students can have a fun college life, but that they can also manage all of their studying. And so I just wanted to point out again the focus study session. So when we have students think about their studying, we have them think of their studying in terms of these focus study sessions when they're planning their studying. And so we have a full-length video on our website about focus study sessions and how to do them. This is just a little teaser.
Looking to get more out of your study time? Check out the focus study session from the LSU Center for Academic Success. Feel less stress and be more efficient with your studying by focusing intently, one goal at a time. Focused study sessions can help you retain more information and stay in control of your learning. For more information, visit the Center for Academic Success at lsu.edu. Looking to get more.
And so those focus study sessions are really critical to help students get the most out of their learning. And so one of the things that we ask students to do, and not all, this doesn't work for all students, but on Sunday night to make a master to-do list. And so going through all their syllabi, pulling out what they need, what work they need to get done during that week, and really thinking in terms of in these little increments of, what would fit in a focus study session. So as I'm making my to-do list, what kind of fits into that focus study session time frame, and breaking their stuff up like that. And so then once they have that list, we also ask students to create a weekly schedule where they put their stuff that they have to do first. If we put our classes in first, then, maybe we have a job. And so we put our work in, we have to eat. So we put in some time for that. But then what students start seeing, they see these white spaces and they think, oh, wow, I got so much time. I just have so much free time. I don't even know what to do with myself. But that's erroneous thinking, because they have to spend so much more time now outside of class studying. And so these white spaces are where we want them to put in these focus study sessions, these FSSs. And so they need to pepper these focus study sessions throughout their day to get the most out of their studies. And so we really teach them how to implement the study cycle into their daily routine. And so those are kind of the basic strategies. Really want the parents to understand those, so that when you ask your student to come use our services, you can tell them. They're not going to just tell you to study harder. They're really going to give you specific strategies that are effective and help you be more effective in your classes. And so those are the strategies, but then we also have these amazing services that really help the students in their classes. And the pace of college work is so fast that every student benefits from using these academic support services. These academic support services are not just for students who are struggling. They are for everyone. There is not a stigma on using tutoring in college or going to supplemental instruction. The really competitive students are using these services to get ahead and to be more effective in their learning. And so this is kind of an introduction to our services.
Hey, LSU students, welcome to the Center for Academic Success. Trying to get the top grade in your classes? Need help with homework? Or maybe you're just trying to get the hang of college learning. CAS is here to help you succeed with free and award-winning services.
I can come here if I feel like my grades are falling, or if I need the reassurance that I'm doing my best.
Need help with time management or trying to learn the best ways to study? Visit an academic coach. Academic coaches sit down with you one-on-one and create personalized plans to help you succeed in your classes.
Academic coaching really helped me both set and achieve my goals, allowing me to both have fun and to balance my schoolwork.
Tutors at the Shell Tutorial Center can help you with homework problems, test prep, and study strategies. Prefer studying in a group? The Shell Tutorial Center also offers Shell study groups, where you and other classmates can meet with a trained tutor.
I really made some great connections with other students. I feel like I have a lot of new friends on campus.
You can even find CAS in the classroom. Some class sections are paired with CAS Supplemental Instruction leaders who host weekly study sessions. So whether you need help navigating history or calculating equations, your SI leader will be with you throughout the entire semester.
SI sessions help me increase my GPA, and I just feel more confident in my classes.
On the go, stay connected and learn more about these services by visiting the CAS website. You can also find free online resources like the GPA calculator, CAS semester toolkit, planners, calendars, and more. From the day you step foot on campus to the day you walk across the graduation stage, CAS is here to help you feel empowered to succeed. Hey, LSU student.
Okay, and so we do wear masks. That video was shot before COVID, and so we do wear masks at all of our in all of our services with students. And so just to recap, so we offer content support. SI is supplemental instruction. It is where you have a peer leader that is attached to a class, and they work with the faculty member to hold study sessions for the students in the class. Students who attend SI can earn an average of half a letter grade higher than the students who don't attend SI. Study groups, like we said, are groups that are done in the Shell Tutorial Center. They are led by a trained tutor. And then we have peer tutoring that's one-on-one, and an appointment is required for that for now, because we are monitoring the the capacity of the tutoring center because we don't want too many people in there. So appointments are required for tutoring at this time. And then we also have online tutoring available for after hours called Net Tutor, and it's also available in some subjects that we may not offer. And then learning strategies, which I went over a lot of those in the beginning of the presentation. We have a lot of self-help tools on our website. So we have a tips and tools section where students can dive into different areas that they're interested in to learn more about different strategies. We have Learning Journey, which is a self-guided Moodle course that really walks students step by step through the strategies that we talked about here. And then we have Signature Series, which is a workshop series that we offer. We offer 3 sets of workshops throughout the semester, one at the beginning on time management, one at the middle that really focuses on a lot of the strategies we talked about here, and then one prior to finals to help students prepare for finals. And then we have academic coaching, and academic coaching is our one-to-one services where we personalize strategies for each student, and we really go through them with their schedule, with their classes, and really help them determine the best strategies for studying for the courses that they're taking. And so just to promote Signature Series, the Super Strategy session is coming up on October 5th and 6th. Please encourage your student to attend. And then we have the Go Prepared Signature Series on November 9th and 10th. It's the same workshop, we just hold it on 2 different nights. And then just ensure all these great planners. These are all on our website, but we also have physical copies down in our center in B31 Coates. We encourage all students to come by and grab one. One other tool I do want to point out that's on our website is this class organizer. And I worked with a student today to fill one of these out. He was having trouble understanding all the things that were required of him, and he felt like he was missing some of his assignments and hadn't done some of them. So I really encouraged him to fill out a class organizer for each one of his classes so that he could understand, what homeworks do I have? Did I do it? What grade did I make on that? Oh, wait, I didn't do this assignment. So maybe I need to go talk to my professor and see if I can make that up. And then really under here, putting some class considerations, because each class is different and each professor may have something that is really kind of unique about their class. And so, we may want to mark those things, here so that we can remember, we've always got that homework assignment that's due on this day every week, or, when do we schedule our exam? So this class organizer is really, really helpful. And so we just are so glad to talk to the parents, because you guys are such an asset. Your student, when they're going through orientation and all of these things, they just have so much information overload. But now that they've had, been in their classes, they've maybe taken some tests, they really can use, your guidance and just encouragement to help them take advantage of some of these resources now. And so really, we just encourage parents to listen, to empathize and encourage, because they may be going through a difficult time, but really helping them understand, hey, this is a transition. This is normal. You may be struggling, but that doesn't mean you have to keep struggling if we get you the help you need. And then really emphasizing, them reflecting on what their attitudes and behaviors, and really having them take responsibility for making the changes that they need to be successful and taking advantage of those resources. And really guiding the student, but letting the student take the action, letting the student make that appointment, letting the student find the resource if needed. But, we're really trying to encourage students to become resilient, but also to become independent and really to advocate for themselves. And so we really appreciate our parent support in this area, and know that parents are one of the main reasons that students end up using our services. And so please visit our website. It has a lot of this information and more on there. It has descriptions about each of our services. Students can make appointments, they can schedule different things, and they have access to tips and resources. We ask students to follow us on social media. We ask you to follow us on social media. We also have a newsletter that goes out every Sunday that you can sign up for on our website. Your student receives this newsletter and it gives them encouraging tips, based on what's going on in the semester. And so I just want to, really thank all of you and just thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight.
Thank you so much, Melissa. That was such helpful content. For our families tuning in, I know it was a lot. And so what I want to share with you is that we are going to send you a recap of all of the information that was shared tonight. You can then share that with your Tiger. We also are going to send you a copy of the recording of tonight's session. So we really want you to have a conversation with your Tiger, make sure that they are aware of all of the wonderful things that the Center for Academic Success offers. So y'all stay tuned for that email later this week. It will also be posted on our website. But I want to jump right into our panel. I want you to hear from some current students and families to share their perspective about some academic resources and help answer your questions. So I'm going to ask our panelists to come on. And our first panelist that I want to introduce tonight is Christina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Garcia. I'm from San Francisco, California. I'm a sophomore and my major is sports administration with a minor in political science and business.
Thank you so much, Christina. Our next panelist is Grace.
Hi, everyone. I'm Grace Richard. I'm from Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'm a junior studying sociology and concentrating in criminology, and I'm on track to minor in psychology.
Thank you so much. And I want to introduce Annie next. Annie, you still with us?
Yes, I am. So sorry.
Sorry.
I'm also just a little bit hoarse. Very sorry. My name's Annie. I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. I'm an environmental engineering major with a minor in dance, and I'm a junior.
Thank you so much. We also are joined by two parent panelists. Our first panelist is Khalida Black.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Khalida Black. I'm from Lawrenceville, Georgia. My son is a senior this year. He's majoring in sports commerce, and I'm so glad to be a part of this presentation. I'm also a member of the Family Council, so it's always enjoyable to be able to connect with you.
Thank you. And our final parent panelist, we are joined by Susan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Susan Howard, Go Tigers, and I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. Our daughter is graduated this May with her bachelor's and is currently a grad student at LSU in sports management.
Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. I'm going to jump right in. Our first question is, what was the transition like for you or your Tiger going from high school academics to college academics? I think that's, since we have mostly freshman families joining us, a lot of them are going through that transition right now and really want to know what yours was like. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Annie first.
So my transition was definitely a learning curve, especially coming from out of state. And then also the transition from high school to college learning is very drastic in the sense that I completely had to relearn how to study. So that was really difficult, but with my roommates' help and with the resources all around campus, it took a few months to kind of get in the swing of things. And it definitely took a lot of communicating with my professors and my friends and my parents, trying to remain sane, still have a life, but also keep my grades up. Especially in just such a new environment. It was a little difficult, but definitely got on track with everything that LSU has.
Thank you for sharing, Annie. Khalida, what was Chandler's experience like transitioning from high school to college academics?
he is well in terms of the academics, a little bit of a learning curve there. He took some more rigorous classes when he was in high school. So he kind of had that somewhat of an idea of how the college classes would be presented to him. However, in talking to him, his biggest differences, he said, was not so much that you had all those classes, but it's also, as was mentioned earlier, it's balancing all of that freedom and knowing when you have to study for your classes, knowing that in some of your classes, you only have 2 or 3 exams for the full semester, and you got to get it together in those points. And one of the main things that he kept emphasizing was the fact that you have all that freedom and that your professors are not like in high school. They're not going to be holding your hand throughout this process, and you have to get it on your own, and using these resources was really for him.
Thank you so much, Kalita. I want to hear another parent perspective. Susan, what was your daughter Bree's experience with that transition like?
Well, Bree had a difficult transition academically because she went to a private high school where, again, hands were held, and it was a small high school. And then she came to LSU. And while she had been extremely successful academically in high school, when she got to LSU, she was one of those students who got a very low grade to begin with and, you know, fulfilled every one of the things that were spoken about earlier. So her biggest transition was learning what is the difference, not only in how academics are taught, what expectations are there, but how she could personally succeed in meeting the expectations.
Absolutely, thank you. I want to go back to a student perspective. Christina, can you share what your transition was like for us?
Yes, definitely. So like the other students, I do come from out of state as well, especially with California being so far. I think one of the hardest parts for me was definitely not being close to my family. I didn't really struggle academically coming from LSU, coming to LSU. The only thing that I definitely took advantage of, especially this year, coming from all online, like my senior year and my freshman year here, was organization, being in person, making sure that I'm able to get schoolwork done, but also having being able to sleep and still being part of the different organizations that I'm in. I definitely think the hardest part though was probably just making sure that I took that me time for myself with all the craziness that college has.
Absolutely, you're right. Take that me time too. That's a great advice to share. And then finally, Grace, I want to hear from you about your transition.
Yeah, so I also went to a private school in Lake Charles, and we did use Moodle, but I still had no idea how to like manage my freedom, this newfound freedom, being 2 hours away and then organizing. My freshman year was very difficult in really prioritizing school over the fun that 2019 everything was, but it was difficult, but it's definitely like it's doable, it's manageable. It's as long as you are reaching for help and listening to people, it can't be hard to help yourself out. So
thank y'all so much. Our next question, we want to know about your familiarity with the services and information that Melissa touched on during her presentation about Center for Academic Success. So for all of our panelists, if you can share, what is your experience? What services did you utilize provided by the Center for Academic Success? And then what impact did those services have on your academic performance, so that we can give some testimonials to these families watching about truly how beneficial the Center for Academic Success really is. So I'm going to start off with Annie.
So I've used a lot of the resources that Center for Academic Success has provided. I use the SI sessions a lot, especially for my early chemistry classes, my calculus class. I even had an SI for my anthropology class. They're super helpful because they're usually student-led, which is really helpful because they've probably taken the class, so they can give you kind of more personal pointers. They've also, most of my SIs, they actually sat in the class with us if they had the time, so they can actually tell like what notes we actually went over. And so they were just, it was a lot more personal than maybe an outside of campus tutor. Also, I use that semester wide calendar. I use that every semester. I've used it every semester since my first semester freshman year. I'm also, when I went through Calculus 1, I used the Shell Tutorial Center a bunch. It was extremely helpful, especially trying to get all those homework assignments done because I had a new homework assignment almost every night. So it was really helpful to go in there and actually have like another student come do a one-on-one with me, especially in a setting that was more comfortable and more relaxed, where I feel like I could mess up and they would be totally understanding. So definitely for that Calc 1 and like Chem 1 and Chem 2, all of their resources were extremely helpful. And they definitely helped me get A's on tests, which was really nice.
We love to hear you get an A, so that is great feedback. Thank you for sharing. Christina, I know that you've utilized some of the services as well. Can you talk about what worked for you for the Center for Academic Success and impacted your grades?
Yes, of course. So I think one of the main things that was said in the presentation that helped me the most was the study cycle diagram. Like other panelists have said, I think the transition from high school to college and just learning a new way to study is sometimes really difficult. So a lot of the academic coaches just helped me figure out what is best for me. I definitely did struggle with cramming a lot coming into college, or the complete opposite, and just studying way too long to where I would just burn out really fast. So that's definitely one thing that the academic coaches did teach me personally a lot. I've also found that one of the resources that my academic coach helped me with was making sure that I have a planner. I think having a planner and just a set schedule is essential in college, especially so you can utilize your day as productively as possible. I'm one that needs to like go to the gym and just have that me time that I keep talking about in order for me to be successful. So I think having a planner and just making sure that you utilize your day as productively as you can, that's definitely one thing that CIS has helped me with.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And then Annie, Grace, I would love for you to share as well for us what services worked for you from Center for Academic Success.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed using the supplemental instruction. I used it for my statistics last semester, and it's really important to go to the SI sessions like as soon as they begin, because if you don't understand a concept early in the class, then it kind of makes it more difficult to learn. So I went in like I think the second week of classes to understand a concept. And then I went to a few of them, and just understanding what I didn't know, my grades started going up, my homework had improved a lot. And it was just really, it was awesome to have that tool to use. Another thing I liked using was the Success Sunday emails from the newsletter. Every Sunday we would get like a study tip of the week, and then some like positive just feedback and just things to really help you like learn and study and like manage things. And I remember Sundays are my wellness days, so having like an email pop up of just kind of like telling me or advising me like what to do, take this step to help, and just it really helped me like take a breath and really organize everything in a way that helped me. So those two things helped me a lot.
Thank you so much for sharing, Grace. Now I want to get the parent perspective because that's incredibly important as well. So I want to know, Khalida, what resources did Chandler utilize from the Center for Academic Success, and how have those impacted his academic performance?
So Chandler also was very fond of the SIs as well. He liked the fact that the perspective that he got was from the students' perspective, that the fact that they could throw in tips that the professor or maybe even another tutoring option or another platform would not provide. And with that, it helped him to a lot of times prepare for testing. I think he found that testing a lot of times was, you think you're prepared, and after he bombed one of his first tests, he realized, I'm not as prepared as I thought. And so that helped to bring him around, and he's managed to do very well with his grades since then.
Absolutely. And Susan, what resources did Bree utilize?
As I mentioned earlier, Bree's main problem was that she got a very low score on one of her first quizzes and thought that, there was no improving from there. And so when we talked to her as parents, we asked her, well, had she taken advantage of any of the resources available to her to help her study better or whatever? She had not made that transition between high school, where the great focus is on memorization and content and some use of application, but to college, where professors are really expecting a much bigger leap in application of knowledge. And so when we asked her about that, she said, yes, I've tried some of those resources, the tutoring and mostly the tutoring. And she said, that doesn't work for me. And we were so surprised by that, because she's very much a one-on-one succeeder and person. So when we asked her about it, she said, well, the problem is I can never get an appointment. Well, the problem was really on her side, where she would call for an appointment a day or two in advance and there wouldn't be anyone available. So what we did then was to advise her to seek out an academic counselor through the Center for Academic Success. And what she said there was, well, the problem is I already have an academic advisor, and I'm pretty sure that's the only person I'm supposed to talk to. So we had to kind of help her to understand that there are very different services that your academic advisor provides you and the academic counselor. So what she really needed success with and help with was test anxiety, and also understanding that just because you get a study guide, it doesn't necessarily tell you everything that's going to be on the test. So that one-on-one in counseling really made a difference for her to be able to take a deep breath, sort of reset and go forward. And so she used services all the way through her 4 years, and well, not so much in her senior year, but she took use of SI all the way through the end of her junior year. So she really had a great deal of success once she figured out how to utilize the services.
Thank you so much, Ms. Susan. The next one we're going to throw back to our students. So Annie, we'll start this one with you. Did you talk to your parents or family about academics, and how did they kind of help encourage you to utilize the resources offered at LSU or seek help outside?
So I am definitely the kind of person, I talk to my mom every day and I tell her every grade I've ever gotten ever. So kind of when I was, again, in Calculus 1, I was kind of struggling. She kind of noticed that I wasn't telling her as much about my homeworks, and I was telling her lower quiz grades and things like that. So she kind of just sent me a link to the Centers of Academic Success website about the Shell Tutorial Center, which I talked about a little bit earlier. So she's the one that actually pointed out this tutorial center, was like, hey, I noticed that you weren't talking about your homework as much, or that your quiz grades weren't as high as they originally were. This is just kind of what I found on the website. Take a look if you have the time. So that was really helpful for her, just to send that to me, but not to like shove it down my throat, like you need to go to tutoring. It was more of a like, here's this resource on campus, I think you should check it out. And so when my mom suggested it to me, I was like, well, she wouldn't have suggested or taken the time to do that if she didn't really think that I really would have benefited from it and that kind of a thing. So that was really helpful for her to be able to find that resource and send that along to me.
Awesome. Thank you, Annie. Grace, what about you? Did you talk to your parents about academics as well? And how did they kind of help encourage you?
Yeah, I had a similar situation with Annie. I often talked to my mom about my grades and everything. But before I even started my freshman year, my mom had already been involved in the newsletters from the Center for Academic Success and on the Facebook page. And the first day of school, she told me about everything that LSU offers. And she also still gets the newsletters just like I do. And so she'll forward them to me and be like, did you do this? Like, don't forget about it. And as looking back, like, I'm really glad she pushed for all of these just outlets for help, because I'm very stubborn, but I needed the help. I did not know what I was doing. So like both of my parents just were huge advocates to take advantage of every opportunity for tutoring or supplemental instruction. And I'm really glad they did because it has helped me so much. It's definitely made my junior year a lot more manageable and I feel a lot more organized. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Grace. And last, Christina, did you talk to your parents about academics and how did they help you as well?
Yeah, so I'm kind of the opposite of both Grace and Annie. My mom was never really super on top of me with school and everything. She kind of left that up to me and made me figure it out myself. So when I did start talking to her about me being overwhelmed with the transition, that's when I was like, okay, no, I need to do something about this. And that's actually when we both decided that I should go to the Center of Academic Success to help me be more organized throughout that transition. So.
Awesome. Thank y'all so much for sharing. And our last question is going back to our parent panelists. So we'll start this one with Kalita. So how did you encourage your Tiger to take advantage of academic resources and support?
So basically with Chandler, and I think I'm the only one with a male on this call here, but to me, males are a little bit less likely to be calling mom and saying, hey, these are my grades, like some of you other young ladies. So sometimes we would have to pull that information out of Chandler. And what we would always do, we also kept up with the LSU calendars that listed out everything. And we would notice, okay, they're having midterms here. Chandler, how are you doing with your grades? Do you think you need some tutoring? And we would just encourage him gently enough to go in there to try to get the help that he would need. And I think he definitely appreciates it now that he's in his senior year and has been very successful with everything. As a parent as well, you just want to, and I say this a lot when I'm on these webinars and things, keep your line of communication open. You know your student, you know when there's probably something going on. As mothers, use that intuition. And so if they start shutting down, and I think it was kind of like what I think Annie said, when they start shutting down, start asking the questions. We would ask the questions, and then that would open up the communication to help us to understand what he needed, what was going on in his life, to hopefully to make him successful. So we've just tried to make sure he knew all of the resources that were available, whether he was seeking them out or whether we were seeking them out through all of the resources that we would get from LSU and notifications as such. And I would also throw in this, use the fall break to regroup. Use that time to again, give your Tigers all their attention that they need, but also give them a regrouping of, okay, this is where we need to be. Set some goals in mind if they don't have those goals, and then send them back on their way. And then you'll have the winter break to also regroup and analyze how that first semester went. And then you may be at that point be able to say, okay, I think you really need to use this resource versus something else. So that's kind of how we've handled it with Chandler.
Thank you so much, Kalita. And Susan, how did you encourage your Tiger to take advantage of academic resources and support?
Well, unbeknownst to us, evidently our daughter, who for the most part functions more like a son, felt this great pressure to please us and felt as though, if we were to know of any low test scores or anything, that we would panic and, all of that. So one of the main ways that we supported her during her first freshman semester was to really not make such a focus of academics. We would inquire about it and ask about it, but we did everything we could not to put more pressure on. And in fact, when she finally did share, as I mentioned earlier, that one test grade or quiz grade in the 40s, we sort of brushed it away and said, one score doesn't affect you. And even your first semester GPA isn't going to define your entire academic career. But we used those as opportunities then to reinforce how is she using the services, which after all, as parents, we're paying those fees, right? So we want them to go use those resources. And we would ask her how she was using them. And then as able, provide other ways and alternatives of ways in which she could use those services. The other thing that's sort of not been discussed, and it's not a Center for Academic Success idea or service, but there are other services on campus. And one of the ways that we tried to help our Tiger was to say, it is okay to go see your professor during office hours and make yourself known to him and let it be known that, you want to raise your grade and how can you do that? And when in fact she did do that, she found that many professors were more than able and willing to help her build her grade in some way or another. And we also encouraged her to do study groups of her own, get out of her dorm, go over to the library to do her studying, and that seemed to help her better study and be prepared for testing, and just, get out of the room. So the other way that we suggested it might help is for her to go to UREC and burn off some of her energy and some of her stress. And so she joined a kickboxing class, and that really did help her, along with the strategies that she had gotten from the Center for Academic Success. It helped her with her test anxiety. So those are just a few other suggestions and things that we did.
Thank you so much, Susan. And thank you so much to all of our panelists for sharing your experiences with us and some useful tips to help support our students with their academics. Tons of great tips here from our panelists. But now we'd like to hear from you. As a reminder, please submit any questions through the question and answer feature on Zoom, or if you're on Facebook, just leave it in the comments. If you want to hear specifically from any speaker, just mention their name and we will make sure to get that answered. We've already gone ahead and answered a few questions in the question and answer. So make sure to check there for some responses, but let's see if we have anything. Okay, so we had one person on Facebook asking about if your class is not listed on the SI, which is Supplemental Instruction list, what should they go ahead and do? So I'm not sure if Miss Melissa wants to answer that or one of our panelists.
Yeah, so if, all classes are not covered by SI. So the next option I would look for would be to see if we had a study group or tutoring available in the Shell Tutorial Center. And if either of those don't work, to look at our Net Tutor, which is online tutoring. And then is one other option. So we provide what we call tutor matching service. And so tutor matching service is an area where LSU students who provide tutoring for a fee will sign up. And so you can go on there and find a one-on-one tutor that you can hire as well. So there's a list, and on tutor matching service, the tutors are rated and whatnot. And it's a way to protect the student and parent. There's the service you pay through that service, so the money doesn't ever touch hands and whatnot, and so it's a kind of a protection there. So those tutors are not certified by the Center for Academic Success, but it is just a courtesy list that we provide. So those are several of the options available. And writing tutoring is available through Communication Across the Curriculum. It's a different organization than ours, but they're the ones who provide the writing tutoring on campus.
Great, thank you so much, Melissa. If anybody else has any questions, just leave them in the chat or the comment section on Facebook. But we will go ahead and go over some additional resources for y'all. If you have any questions that you think of for the remainder of this webinar, we will stay around to help answer until the end. Okay, so we have a PowerPoint up. So we will be hosting these webinars throughout the fall this semester. So on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. The next one is going to be Tuesday, October 5th at 6 p.m. And this one focuses all on how you can help your Tiger prepare for spring course scheduling. So scheduling will begin for spring 2022 at the end of October. So we want to make sure your Tiger is all set and ready to go for as soon as it opens. Okay, and we're going over to the next one. Make sure it did. Okay. We encourage you also to consider joining our LSU Family Association if you've not already. Two of our wonderful panelists that join us tonight, Miss Susan and Kalita, are members of our Family Association. It's a wonderful way to get involved and stay in the know about everything going on at LSU. So you can learn more and see all of the benefits that are included, like scholarships, discounts, and events that we offer by visiting our website at lsu.edu/join. And we're going to go ahead and link that in the chat as well for you. And before we conclude this event, we want to hear from you. So please let us know what you thought of this evening's webinar by answering a super quick survey. You can use the camera on your cell phone and scan the QR code, or we're going to go ahead and link it in the comments for you to fill out. So just basic thoughts so that we can help make these webinars even better for you and your Tiger. And then once again, our office is always here to support you and your Tiger's success. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us via email. It's just lsufamily@lsu.edu. Or if you have any other questions for our Center for Academic Success, we'll include their email in the chat as well. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay in the loop with what's going on around campus. We stream these webinars on Facebook as well. So just make sure to check the schedule and join us for our next one on Facebook also. If you'll have any other final questions, we're going to answer those via chat in the Zoom. If not, then thank you again for joining us. And as always, go Tigers.